Hi, It Girls. We're back with another episode of the It Girls Guide. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little nervous to film this one because we're going to be talking about my breakup. And I was just telling my producer, I have played out what I would say in this episode so many times, and my mind is blank right now. So we're just going to see what happens. Um, the breakup is not so recent. It's been a few months now, but I had this conversation with my dad where I was like, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know how I'm gonna tell people, I just filmed an episode about my divorce, and now people are, it's obvious, apparently through my thirst traps, that I'm single again. So, people know, and how am I gonna say something? And he was like, isn't that why you started this podcast, so that you could talk to women about things that are really happening in your life and relate to people? And as I said to him, I'm not through it all the way. And I called this podcast the It Girls Guide to kind of be, the guide part is so important to me because I want to be giving advice and guidance. And how do you give someone or a group of people guidance through something that you're not fully through, right? But maybe I'll do a follow-up episode when I'm fully healed, I guess. I guess background, we all know I was divorced, and this most recent breakup was the first real boyfriend I've had. And I've had boyfriends where I've been dating, but I'd say real boyfriend meaning we were exclusive. And I have been saying since I started my divorce that I don't want to, I do want to get married again. I do want to spend my life with someone. And because my running joke has been, I don't want my boyfriends to stop me from finding my husband. But really, what that means is that I am looking for something in the long term that's serious. So I won't cut myself off to the potential of something serious for something that might just be fun. And this is someone that I met and immediately clicked with, and then we did start planning our life together. We were very intertwined, and it was a long distance relationship. Originally, when it started, it wasn't supposed to be long distance forever. There was kind of an end in sight, and then that end that was supposed to be in sight kind of dissipated, not by any fault of either of us. It's just life. And we had to have a real conversation about, it's an adult relationship, right? And I've known for a long time now, and through my own experiences, that love is not enough to keep a relationship together in the long run. And I think that this sounds crazy, but this is the first time in my adult life where I've been in love, despite the fact that I've been married before. I did love my ex-husband, but not in the same way. Where I was in love and it was reciprocated and it was really healthy. And it's the first relationship that I've had that's broken up, and in every other breakup I've had, it's been very clear that the relationship needed to end and there was no turning back. And when you break up and the reason isn't because you've fallen out of love or that there's resentment or that there's anything else, it's really difficult to kind of process that. And this was especially difficult for me, I think, because he was really involved, and I really appreciate him for this. He was really involved in kind of helping me start this podcast and giving me the confidence to do it, and setting me up with teams and with people that could help me and mentors and whatnot. And the timing of all this, as you know, there still might be some episodes that I haven't released yet where I mention him, because I wanted to stockpile some episodes and get really comfortable in front of the camera and whatnot. And I was doing all this while we were together, and we were, I spoke about him, and then, we broke up before I actually even launched the podcast. And I remember just crying to my mom and my dad, and I was and some of my friends, and being oh, it's going to be so embarrassing. I have to relive this in front of people, or people are going to know that I'm some sort of fraud in a way of see, now I'm already crying. And I think through the experience, it taught me to give myself, here's my hidden tissue, a little bit of grace, because um, I think that we all like want to see ourselves in the best way. And I want to be able to say, I think my friends look at me and other people look at me as being strong. And I see myself as a strong person, but I also found myself like part of why I loved the relationship I was in was because it was the first time where I felt like I was able to be soft. And I've never seen myself as soft before. And I think that was like an important part of me, like a learning experience that I had within that relationship. And, but it's one thing to be soft, like with a partner and like behind closed doors in your own home. It's another thing to be soft, like publicly. And I think it was so apparent to me how soft I had become and not only how soft I had become in that relationship, but also how most people in my life don't see me as being soft, because both my parents and my brother had mentioned how like they noticed that I'd become softer. And I remember I was with my two of my closest friends who've known me for a long time. One of them being my friend Britt. Um, when the breakup like really started to happen, and she saw me like sobbing, and she was like, "I don't think I've ever seen you cry before." And she's been around through my divorce and through everything else, and I'm someone who never really like let anybody see me that way. And one of the things I said to my therapist when I was going through this breakup was like, I don't want this to harden me, because I spent so much of my life being like what I felt like was protecting myself, but I realize it comes off as being like cold or harder, I guess. And I said, I don't want to lose my softness. And she said, part of that is going to be like, okay, well, then you're going to have to be vulnerable in situations where you're uncomfortable being vulnerable. So I think recording this episode is one, because I want to like share with other women that like it's okay to be in this like limbo of feelings, right? But also like to prove to myself it's okay to like be a little soft sometimes and give yourself some grace. And I'm sure there's not I'm sure. I know there's people who are watching because they want to hear like the nitty-gritty of my breakup and want some inside scoop, and that's not what this is about. The only thing I'd like to say about like the relationship and the breakup is that I really do respect my ex-partner, and I really do feel like he treated me so well. And part of the breakup was the fact that like given the life circumstances that we were in and that he was in, he knew that he couldn't be what he wanted to be for me, and our relationship couldn't be for each other what we needed it to be. Long distance is difficult. Life gets in the way when people have other responsibilities. We technically live across the country from each other. And yeah, that's hard. And I think you look down the road I think you look down the road in a relationship, and it's, we all want to think that everything's going to be fine and dandy and we'll figure it out. But also, if you are looking down the road and saying, this looks like a really difficult path, maybe we need to like separate and give each other some time to figure things out. Like sometimes that's the way to go. And, I think I'll just be really honest about how I processed this whole breakup, because I will say at first I was kind of in denial, and not in denial that like that the breakup was happening, but I think in denial of how much it was going to affect me. And we kind of like tell ourselves these lies, and it wasn't that I would be lying if I said I don't think we would ever get back together. And I say that not with like holding hope that like something will happen, because I don't like to live my life that way. But I say that because in my past relationships, as I said before, it's been so final. There's been some sort of betrayal, or there's been some sort of like finite, like, or clear issue in the dynamic between me and, whoever I was dating, where it was like, oh, this is for sure never going to work. And that wasn't the case with this relationship. It was really just circumstances. Um, but I had a very real moment with like myself and my therapist where I had to say, okay, I can't be in denial that this is like happening and I just have to get through it. And I think part of my denial was because of the timing. It was like before holidays, before I was launching my podcast. And like, I was like, this is a really inconvenient time to have to deal with a breakup. And breakups I've had before my marriage, and then like, I don't even call them breakups post marriage, but just situationships or dating someone and then saying, oh, we're going to call things off, whatever, never really rocked me. And this rocked me a lot more than I was willing to admit. Um, and I felt very like, I felt very unstable. Like I had started looking to someone else for some stability. And I realized like, oh, I'm going to have to readjust. And I had to lean on my friends and be really honest. And I had to have a few like crying sessions and mental breakdowns in front of people that I otherwise wouldn't. But as I said before, I wanted to keep my softness. Um, and I think this breakup has like really taught me to give myself more grace for my emotions. And like I said, I was starting the podcast and I see myself as someone who really works hard. And I have in the past really tended to compartmentalize and dive into my work and be distracted. And I couldn't distract myself and I fell off. I wasn't as consistent. I wasn't answering emails. And there was like, I think a 2-week period where I was really down on myself, not just because of like the breakup, because I do feel like my ex really instilled, you know, a level of safety in our relationship where I never felt like he didn't care about me. I wasn't, our breakup wasn't about me like questioning what happened or did I miss something or whatever it was. But I, I, I didn't think it was going to rock me as much as it did. And I was really frustrated with myself for like, basically how sad it made me because I'm always a friend that's like, oh, we don't care about what these boys think and like it's whatever. And if I'm, I'll just move on and I'll be on a yacht on somebody's yacht tomorrow, no big deal. And like those are the things we say. And to be honest, I guess I just didn't care that much about as many people as I dated before, or like it didn't get to that point where I was relying on them in that way. But I opened myself up to relying on someone or like letting someone in to be a level of support. And yeah, I was really frustrated with myself for almost for like letting someone in. And then I checked myself and I was like, you know what? There was a point in my life where I thought, oh, well, one where I knew I had a really unhealthy relationship with love. And I basically had decided, oh, it's okay if I settle. And after I guess that like grief period of the breakup, I realized it's actually like really awesome for particularly someone like me who's been through the things that I'd been through to, in the grand scheme so soon, a couple years after a divorce, find somebody that I wanted to be with, and not about finding someone I wanted to be with, but me being ready to let somebody in that way. And at first I think I confused myself and I thought I was upset or disappointed because of the relationship ending or like, it didn't last as long as I wanted it to or whatever it is. And what I realized was, maybe this is a little funny, like, was that I was kind of annoyed. And I was annoyed because I was like, I've been through a divorce. And I think I'm, as crazy as it might sound, I was more heartbroken over the breakup with my ex-boyfriend than I was with my ex-husband. But when I left my ex-husband, my life across the board was in turmoil. I had graduated with my MBA and was working, but I was so stressed and like my relationships were strained because I was hiding so much from my friends and my family. And I was really insecure and confused about who I was. And with this breakup, I was like, I just started a new project that I'm really excited about. My relation with my friends are really good. My relation with my parents are really good. My financial situation is a lot different than it was when I was like in debt going through my divorce. So I have all these other amazing things that are going on. And I was annoyed that I had to deal with this, basically. I was like, I almost had it all at the same time. Then I had to shift my perspective and think, okay, I could be frustrated that, oh, I didn't have it all at the same time, or be really fucking grateful that I have so many other things going for me that I can not distract myself, but I can shift my focus. And it's this weird, it was this weird feeling of trying to, of balancing being really sad but also really grateful at the same time. And honestly don't really know how to explain that emotion, as like, how my friends stepped in. I'm gonna cry. I always cry when I talk with my friends. Because my friends were really there for me through my breakup with my ex-husband, but this was like the first time I had let somebody else in, and you start to rely on them to do stuff. And I just remember, like, when I was prepping for the launch of this podcast, right? And originally I had assumed months before, right, that my now ex would be around for all that. And what's crazy is that, or not crazy, but what really moved me was that I didn't have to ask my friends for help. They all kind of just like, not just my friends, even my mom got on a plane and was here for me, even though, like, I'm an adult. She probably didn't need to. And I've done this. I don't know if which episode I'm going to do first, but um, I've talked about how it took a lot of effort for me to strengthen my relationship with my mom, and how it was a lot of effort on my side, but it also was a lot of effort on her side. And one of the things I had said to her when I left my ex-husband, or like when I was going through that divorce, was that I felt really isolated from her and my family. And that I remember I kept saying, no one got on a plane. No one got on a plane and came to see me. And I just went through it by myself. And I remember her saying, but you didn't ask. Like, you could have gone home. You didn't ask. And this time around, I didn't have to ask. She knew because I had said it before. And when it comes to my friends, like, I talk about Laura all the time. I'm going to have her on the podcast. But I was prepping for my like launch event and stuff. And I think she inherently knew that I had originally probably had plans to have my ex like help me with certain things. And he probably would have been the person running around helping with last minute errands. And when I tell you, this girl has a 3-year-old son and a very demanding job. And she like was up early at Party City, last minute, 8 a.m., getting me like gift bag stuff because something didn't arrive on time, and showing up and help with my catering. And I did not have to ask her. Meanwhile, also, like, I'm having a mental breakdown the night before, and she's, on the phone with me, and just even just like the friends that showed up, I'm like, I'm just having a little like launch party, whatever. Friends knowing to show up. I mean, most of them, a lot of them didn't know that I was going through a breakup, but just that level of like, of gratitude that I had, I think I would have felt that love regardless, but it was just so much more apparent given I was feeling the absence of something else, or knowing that something else was dissipating in some way. Yeah, it was just like a time for me to like really lean on my friends. And like I said, giving myself some grace. And we're having this conversation with Laura, and I was like, I know I'm not on my game, and I'm so mad at myself that like that I'm upset and I'm distracted, and that like I can't, operate at my like normal capacity. And she was like, girl, like, you're 60% is most people's 100%. Like, you got this. And if there's a slip up or something happens, like, no one else is going to notice and everybody's like cheering for you. And I don't know, it just like really, it was a weird feeling of being, it was a weird feeling of being both sad and grateful. And I don't know, I guess my reasoning for wanting to talk about this breakup now is, of course, one, I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and like address, I guess, like the elephant in the room. But also because I want to share that it's okay to not just, oh, it's okay to not be okay, but it's okay to be in limbo with your emotions. It's okay to not understand everything that's happened to you all at once. And I think, we are in this era of like social media and everything where everything's like instant. And I do have a lot of friends who've given me grace, but I think we can all relate to, going through a breakup and then people want to interject or give their advice. And maybe there's a little bit of projection. And I want to say for the vast majority of my friendships, everyone has been very supportive. But there have been a few who aren't supportive, but they've been like, oh, are you holding on to hope, or I'm worried about you, or maybe this, maybe that. They're giving advice, and I'm just like, at the time I was like, girl, it's been 6 weeks. It's okay that I'm unstable. It's okay that I still cry about it sometimes. And like, I guess I just want to tell not just girls, but anybody that's like going through a breakup, that the ebb and flow of the emotion is okay. And when I left my ex-husband, I was going through divorce. I wanted to be like alone, right? And right now I don't want to be alone. Now I don't want to say I've started to date, but I mean, I guess I have, but I'm I'm not looking to replace the love that I had. And I think that's something that like a lot of us do in a breakup, is we're kind of trying to like fill a void. And that's not what I do. What I had can't be replaced, or maybe something different comes along, but it can't be replaced. And I'm not trying to rush myself through any emotions or healing or whatever. I'm just taking it like day by day and having fun with it, I guess. And not just when I say having fun with it, I don't mean having fun with dating. I guess dating can be fun, but I'm having fun with like learning about myself. I know that sounds so silly, but watching, I've never seen myself like this, I guess is a weird thing to say, because I met my ex-husband when I was 23. So the relationships I had before that were juvenile in the majority of the sense. And then after my ex-husband, I was dating around, maybe I like loosely called people my boyfriends. I had people that I consistently dated, but no one that I had thoroughly invested my, emotional well-being in, right? Or was like planning a life with, in that sense. And, I, at 31 years old, I feel like I had my first like real like heartbreak breakup. I've been heartbroken before, I think, to some degree, or had my feelings hurt or whatever, but this was very different. And it was like, there was also a moment where it was kind of humbling, not a moment, multiple moments, where it's kind of humbling, where I'm like, damn, I've been like giving advice to my friends who have gone through these breakups in the past, and I've been probably more insensitive than I realized, because I hadn't felt this way before. Like I said, it's my mom used to say to me all the time, it's easier to be angry than sad. I've always known that to be true, generally speaking, but every time I've gone through a breakup, I've pretty much been angry to some degree. And and this time I was sad. And when she originally told me that, and probably advice I've given other people would be, because it's easier to be angry than sad, I would try to be angry. And in the past, it's been easy to be angry because the men that I've dated and then broken up with or whatever did something for me to be angry about. And in this situation, like, my ex didn't do anything for me to be angry about. And as as much as I could try to make myself angry at him to maybe make it easier to get past, it's just not the case. And like sometimes I've realized like you just have to be sad and go through the heartache and just let yourself be sad, because sometimes life is fucking sad, and I can experience a sad moment next to a happy moment and a grateful moment or whatever it is. But I think through this I've just learned you gotta, sometimes the only way out is through, and you just gotta let yourself be sad. And I think something else that's important to note is that how you want to carry yourself through a breakup. Like I've been saying, I didn't want to lose my softness, but also I I didn't want to be angry because I don't want to feel that way, but also because I didn't want to change the tone of what that relationship really was. And I think it's very, very normal and common when you tell someone you've gone through a breakup for them to be like, oh, yeah, fuck that guy. We hate him, whatever. And I have to say, like, every time that's happened, when someone has brought up my ex, or be like, oh, yeah, you were better than him, or you were this, you were that, or, you shouldn't, he lost out big, whatever. That people, those are just things people say when you go through a breakup because they think it's going to make you feel better. And I was having a conversation with my, I remember this so clearly, and I had this conversation multiple times, but this particular conversation with my friend Bailey, and she had never met my ex, and we keep in touch where we have these like, couple hour long catch up conversations, maybe like once a month or once every 6 weeks. And she did what every other friend will do when I'm telling her, yeah, yeah, we broke up and whatever. And she's saying, well, yeah, it happened for a reason, and like you're gonna be better off. And she's saying all those like one-liners that you expect a friend to say. And I cut her off and I was like, I know you mean to help, but this isn't helpful for me right now. I said, I I don't want to look back at this relationship as something where like I I was better than him, or screw him, or that meant nothing or whatever, because that's not the truth, and I don't think that that's going to help me get through any of it. I said sometimes it just sucks. I don't have to tie a pretty bow on it. I don't have to make myself feel better about it. It's just life, and it sucks, and it's okay that it sucks. And I don't have to find a reason to, I don't have to apply a reason for something happening like this. It just, sometimes life sucks. And I think another part of the reason why I don't want to try to force myself to be angry to get through it is because I felt like when I went into this relationship, I was making a good decision. I was making a good choice. And I feel like trying to rewrite history to make myself feel better in the present is kind of like discrediting like the work that I did to get into a healthy relationship in the first place. And I think, bad things can tend to happen towards the end of a relationship, but sometimes, yes, we are looking at back on things that with like rose-colored glasses, right? But sometimes that's not the case, and sometimes it's okay to say like, this was like a really beautiful, happy time in my life, but I have to let it go. But letting it go doesn't mean I need to forget about it, or find some reason to, I guess, yeah, to discredit it. And I don't want that narrative to become a truth, and I don't want to disrespect the beautiful relationship that I had. And it's funny, like the timing of all this, because like I said, I really wanted to go through this breakup, like giving myself grace and learning about myself, and wanting to be proud of the person I am through it, and how I come out of it, because of all the work that I've put into myself over the last couple of years. But I had you guys know the story about my divorce and my ex, and maybe at some point I'll give more detail, but it was really dramatic and traumatic, and there was a lot of it was a long it was a short breakup. The actual breakup was ripping a Band-Aid off. I was like, okay, I'm out and I'm done. But the process of getting to where I am now and the ups and downs between, untangling your life with someone that you married is a big deal, was a lot. And there was a lot of times throughout that breakup divorce process where I was angry, or I had every reason in the world to bash my ex, to say nasty things about him, to, you know, spread truths that were negative, whatever it may be. And, I had friends being like, well, screw him because he did X, Y, and Z. And like, you're this, you should be able to say whatever you want. And I'm saying it's not about him. It's not, I'm not trying to protect my ex. I just don't want to be that person. I don't want to come out of this as like bitter. I want to be proud of myself. I just don't want to be that person. And there were a lot of really low and dark points for me throughout that process. But overall, I look back at how I handled the divorce and how I process things. And I'm really proud of myself because there are a lot of things that I could have done that probably would have made me feel really good in the moment, but I wouldn't have felt good about it in the long term. And like I said, the timing of all this, I had gotten a message from my ex-husband, because now we're on pretty good terms. And it was like, I wasn't waiting on this validation, but it was a level of validation where he had sent me a message that just basically said that he knew that things were tough and that we'd had all these ups and downs, but that he really appreciated how gracious I was through everything, and that I led with love and compassion throughout everything. I've told this to like 4 people, and every time it's like made me sob, but I'm going to hold it together. And it just like, the timing of when he told me this was peak of like my breakup with my ex-boyfriend. And like, well, I guess my ex-husband might see this and be like, oh, wow, I helped her through her breakup with her boyfriend. It's so fucking weird. But it did, because I had this moment of like, at that peak of my ex-boyfriend and I breaking up, I was like, maybe I should be angry. Maybe I should, you're going through all these emotions. And my ex-husband sending me that reminded me that like, that in the end, when I say in the end, I don't know what that really means, but like at some point, whenever I look back at all of this, I will be proud of myself for leading with love and compassion, no matter what. And when I say lead with love and compassion, I mean that towards the person in the past, but also towards yourself. And it's been a difficult few months, and if I would say confusing few months to a degree, because I've, had so many good things happening to me while going through something sad. And but I think that's part of life that I don't think that we acknowledge enough. I think a lot of life in general now is so polarizing, right? It's like you're either mad at someone and cutting them out of your life, or you're happy with them and they're the love of your life and you're going to be with them forever. And that's not actually how life really works, And even when it comes to dating now, it's like I'm not trying to put pressure on replacing anything, or trying to, just because I was in a relationship with someone who I thought I could marry doesn't mean that the next person I date has to be someone that I'm going to marry, right? You can give yourself a little grace. And just because something bad happened in a relationship doesn't mean you have to look at the entire relationship as something that's terrible. And I mean, maybe this is a projection to some degree, but I don't want to do that, because I also, like I said before, I think that's a reflection of me. If I want to look back at the last year of my relationship with my ex-boyfriend, or the 5+ years I was with my ex-husband, all those years weren't bad, right? So if I look back at that and want to say, oh, I'd hate him or screw him or whatever it is, like, it just feels inauthentic and too polarized for me to say something like that. And even with all the stuff I went through with my ex-husband, like, I'm also really grateful for it, like, which is weird to say. We like fought a lot. I mean, I'm filming in my house right now that I bought while I was with my ex-husband. That's the story for another time. Just get a prenup. But it's been quite a journey. Um, but I wouldn't be who I am without any of this. And I look, when I was saying before that I was frustrated with myself for how sad I was over the breakup with my ex-boyfriend, or how I'd let someone in enough to like kind of rock me, right? But also, I'm really proud of myself for letting someone in after everything I've been through. Like that, I didn't think that was going to happen. Um, I'm so not why am I so emotional? Giving myself grace. It's okay that I'm emotional. Um, I think I'll wrap this up by basically just saying that I feel like I've kind of been all over the place, but I'm clearly emotional, and that's okay. Um, I think I just want to wrap it up by saying it's okay if you haven't figured everything out. It's okay if you're in limbo. And like I started with this, I had said to myself, well, maybe I should wait until I've gone through it in full and figured out what the lesson is so I can say, oh, here's how you avoid going through a breakup, or here's how you keep whatever. And like, no, that's not the lesson. What I want to do here with talking to you guys and sharing any part of my life is being authentic and honest, and knowing that like life isn't about tying a pretty bow on something or knowing the answers or having everything figured out. Sometimes it's a little bit messy, and sometimes you're in limbo or in the middle of things. And right now I'm someone who like, I mean, my breakup is both my breakup with my ex-husband and my breakup with my ex-boyfriend are recent in particularly in the grand scheme of life. I mean, I left my ex-husband, what was that, like 3.5 years ago, which 3.5 years is a long time, but it's also in the grand scheme of life, not that long. It's okay that I haven't figured it out. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to be vulnerable and share that, I don't want to be in this space and on some sort of like high horse, like as if I've figured everything out, right? There are some things that I have figured out through some life experience, but there's a whole lot more that I haven't. And I think it's a healthy place to be in, to be able to say you don't really understand what's going on, or you're trying to figure it out, or you're working through it. And that's really kind of where I am right now. I don't have all the answers, but I'm trying. And the one thing that I will leave the one thing that I want to leave you guys with is whatever you're going through in life, but especially a breakup, is being honest with yourself. And I think it's perfect. I want to say being honest with yourself because I think it's perfectly okay to keep some things close to the chest. It doesn't mean that you're dishonest if you don't want to tell your friends all about your breakup, or you don't want to get advice from them or let them, in on everything, as long as you're being honest with yourself about your healing process, how you want to end up in the end, the kind of person you want to be through it. And hey, you know what? If how you want to go through a breakup is be like, well, fuck that guy and I'm going to like make myself better and screw him, great. That's your prerogative. But if you're like me and that's not what you want for yourself, like that's okay. Finding peace and not being angry, and or not having some reason to move past something. It's easier if you have a reason to move past something. When you don't, you want to make up a reason, or you want to get yourself angry and whatever it is, because it's way more comfortable to do that than it is to kind of sit in your emotions. Like I'm sitting right here and I know I'm rambling because I'm so fucking uncomfortable, but the only way out is through. So I know I'm going to be uncomfortable. And I will say I'm way more comfortable now than I was a couple months ago. And I know in a couple months I'll be even more comfortable. And then who knows, in a couple years I might be like, who's that guy? No, I'm just kidding. He's a good one and I wish the best for him. And I don't look back on that relationship and have any sort of really any negative feelings, and I don't think that I should. I want to leave space for the people who are actively going through something or figuring out their emotions, and remind people that it takes time. And time does not mean a couple weeks. Some people, you might get over a breakup in a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years, and all of it is okay as long as you're being honest with yourself about how you're handling things and what you want to get out of it. So I guess I'll just leave you with that, and I will keep you guys updated on how I get through all of this. But I will say I'm in such a good place right now, and I feel so grateful for everything that I have going on in my life and the friends that are around me and the exciting things that I have going on. And I want to give a shout out to Tinks because I listened to her podcast, and she was talking about, I don't remember which episode it was, but she was talking about dating. And if you go through a breakup, what do you do for yourself? And she said to invest in yourself and making yourself more interesting. And I just loved that because we can sit here all day and say, oh, I'm going through this breakup and I want to focus on getting past this or getting over him and getting under somebody else and finding someone else. And none of that's really going to help you, but not just working on yourself, because that can be very daunting, right? Like, we're going to all be constantly working on ourselves, but to put it into perspective of just making yourself more interesting, because being interesting is also going through hard shit. Being interesting is being able to say, hey, I'm in the middle of this and I haven't figured it out, but I'm working on it, or I'm trying. Being interesting is saying, oh, I picked up this new hobby, maybe not because I'm super good at it, it's cool, but because I'm going through some shit and I need a distraction. So I'm trying to make myself more interesting. I want to read more books. I want to take up a pottery class. I want to hang out with my friends more. I want to go on more trips or whatever it is. Do whatever is going to make yourself more interesting, and not more interesting to get the attention of somebody else, but that is going to do things that are going to make you more interesting for yourself and make yourself proud of who you are. I'll end with that. Thank you, girls and guys that are listening. And yeah, let's all give ourselves a little bit of grace. The end.